Hello again. The Ministry of Defence is determined to ensure that as few British soldiers as possible are white and that those who are white are made to feel ashamed of the colour of their skin. To this end, a training day was held on February the 8th called Operation Teamwork. All participants, and this was designed to include everybody in the army, was expected to read and agree with a document called the Psychosis of Whiteness. In the description to this video, I give a link to a bit about Operation Teamwork and another link where viewers can read the paper, The Psychosis of Whiteness. This is all part of a wider strategy which is aimed at decolonising the British Army, and I shall have more to say about this over the next few days. For now, though, let's look at the paper which the Ministry of Defence insists that all soldiers should read so that they can learn that the idea of whiteness is a dangerous mental illness. Let me begin by reading the first few lines from the abstract. Critical whiteness studies has emerged as an academic discipline that has produced a lot of work and garnered attention in the last 2 decades. Central to this project is the idea that if the processes of whiteness can be uncovered, then they can be reasoned with and overcome through rational dialogue. This article will argue, however, that whiteness is a process rooted in the social structure, one that induces a form of psychosis, framed by its irrationality, which is beyond any rational engagement. So, whiteness causes psychosis. Just in case viewers don't know what a psychosis is, it's a mental illness of such severity that the sufferer loses touch with reality and cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is a hallucination. Let me quote a bit more. The aim is to shed light on the concept of whiteness so that it can be addressed, dismantled, or overcome, and attempts to be essential to the liberation of people of colour around the globe. In other words, whiteness is dangerous and those who have it must be cured. By forcing white people to confront their complicity in the system, the aim is to make them reborn as allies to the dark oppressed peoples of the world. As a mechanism to do this work, only a comprehensive theoretical approach will uncover the root system of its functional properties so that it can be dug up and destroyed. Participating in a critical engagement with whiteness is seen as a cathartic and cleansing experience for those with white skin so that they can no longer avoid race and racism. Viewers will observe that whiteness is at the root of the problems which are experienced by black people throughout the world. The idea of being white is dangerous and oppressive of itself, and those who believe in whiteness are lost and delusional until they can be persuaded to abandon their idea of being white so that they can be reborn as allies of black people. The talk of being reborn tells us at once that these ideas are more akin to a religious movement than any traditional sort of debate. We read that Angela Davis listened to a speech by Malcolm X, but was surprised that white people she was with were not as inspired as she was. They were not cleansed and reborn as allies for black liberation. Cleansed and reborn. Again, the religious symbolism. The crux of this is that any white soldiers who are quite pleased to be white and want to remain white or have an idea that being white is a good thing are regarded as being ill and dangerous. If they cling on to the idea of whiteness, then those soldiers are regarded with suspicion. Let's look at a bit more. A central thesis of critical whiteness studies is that it presumes that whiteness can be reasoned with, treated, or even abolished. However, if we see whiteness as a psychosis, then we understand that it is hallmarked by irrationality and a distinct inability to see reality in any other way than the distorted view it creates. The psychosis is so endemic that it engulfs academics who get trapped in the madness of repeating the same prescriptions, even though they continuously achieve the same negative results. Any of the soldiers that went on this course and refused to buy into this nonsense were regarded with suspicion. They were regarded as being contaminated and dangerous. Here is the conclusion of the paper. Western capitalism is built on and sustained by a system of racism. By the way, all this talk about Western capitalism tells you that this paper is written by and for Marxists. It's Marxist ideology. The Ministry of Defence is insisting that British soldiers are indoctrinated with Marxism. Western capitalism is built on and sustained by a system of racism that exploits the people and nations of the darker parts of the globe. It is also sustained by a series of myths of progress and enlightenment about the good that the West has wrought. The dissonance between the reality and these myths is too great for the system to survive, so whiteness becomes a psychosis that prevents society from engaging in the disturbing reality. The psychosis of whiteness is essential to understand when fighting racism. The psychosis will govern the thoughts and actions of Western society. This is Marxist claptrap. Why the Ministry of Defence is insisting that the British Army is being indoctrinated in it is a very curious point. Anybody who believes apparently that European civilization and the Enlightenment are good things is suffering from a hallucination and trapped in a psychosis. This appalling and dangerous nonsense has been foisted off on every squaddy in Britain, and those who disagreed with the thesis advanced were treated as closet racists in need of re-education. Anybody who disagrees, according to the theory of critical whiteness studies, that whiteness is an evil delusion, is mentally ill and unable to accept reality. If somebody set out and devised a way to harm this country by attacking the armed forces from within, then this is pretty well the way they might have gone about it. This is not the worst of it, mind, merely a very interesting example of what the Ministry of Defence is doing to try and subvert our army. The civil servant from the Ministry of Defence who has sent me this stuff feels that it is tantamount to treason to try and sap the morale of the armed forces in this way, and I'm rather inclined to agree with him.